Hello friends and welcome back. This video is going to be another addition to my Updating My Viking Wardrobe series. In this video we are looking at footwear, and specifically we are looking at hose. If you followed this channel for a little while, you know that my impression has so far been based around the Hiberno-Norse culture. And because we're looking at hose, I need to look for evidence for them within that culture. Within my research thus far, I have come across a grand total of 0 Hiberno-Norse references to hose. That puts a small dampener on my plans. Alright, if we haven't got hose, what do we have for footwear? We have a lot of evidence to talk about what sort of shoes the Hiberno-Norse might have worn, but when it comes to the textiles that would have separated the shoe from the foot, we have basically nothing. Alright, so if we've got no textile evidence for any sort of socks or hose in the Hiberno-Norse culture, let's look slightly further afield. Where can we go that does have some evidence? Immediately I thought of the York sock. Cool, socks are good. I do in fact have a pair of socks in York stitch inspired by that sock, but I gotta tell ya, certain winter events, those socks are not enough. And other than the socks in York, in terms of what evidence for hose there could possibly be in the rest of the British Isles, we're talking conjecture at best. There are some metal objects like hooks and clasps that may be hooked into either a garter or some sort of strap that would have potentially affixed something like leg wraps or short hose, but we really don't know for sure. A lot of this is speculation. There are some pictorial evidences of what might be considered short hose, but again, it's all conjecture, we really don't know for sure. Looking further afield, we do come across some short hose, and we do come across actual textile fragments for them, if not complete garments as well. That's kind of amazing. But it's quite a stretch to suggest that they would be appropriate for a Hiberno-Norse impression, so where does this leave me? One of the realities that Viking reenactors often come across is that there is a lack of evidence, but there is a practical need. So what I've decided to do is to go ahead and make some short hose anyway that I can use that are going to be discreet enough underneath my long tunics that no one's really going to know they're there anyway except for me, but they will serve a practical purpose, and that is trying to keep my legs a little bit warmer. No evidence to suggest that the Hiberno-Norse had them, but I need them. So how can I make these and have them still fit in with my impression? There's no real perfect way to do this. Again, because so much of the evidence is conjectural, a lot of my interpretation here is going to be conjectural as well. There are probably some people watching right now who are going, but wait, we have evidence for long hose in the Viking Age, why don't you just use those? And the answer quite simply is I have. I have worn long hose at events, I've worn long hose in my everyday wardrobe, and quite frankly, they're a pain in the rear to wear when you're wearing long tunics. It's as simple as that. They're not the most practical thing in the world. So if there were female or female presenting people who wore long hose in the Viking Age, I can't imagine them doing it with long tunics. We don't exactly have the most solid evidence for long tunics in the first place, but that's a different discussion altogether. My point is that I have tried long hose, I didn't like long hose, so I'm going to try these short hose as an alternative that still keep my legs warm. The first thing I had to do was decide on the pattern. Now, I don't like all of the patterns that are out there, but there are a couple that I've sort of mishmashed together to create my own sort of hybrid of a design. My design involves 3 pieces of fabric cut into different shapes to help mould the pattern to the leg and to the foot. For the fabric, I've decided to go with the exact same fabric I used for my outer tunic. This is a light brown twill wool. And for the thread I went for undyed unbleached linen, which I waxed as I needed to. Normally I would would cut these pieces for the calves specifically on the bias of the fabric, because that gives the fabric a little bit of stretch to be able to form nicely to the leg. I chose not to do that for this pair of hose for two reasons. One, conserving fabric. Two, no one's going to be looking at my feet. With the skirts of my dress being particularly long, no one was going to see my legs anyway, so having them not perfectly fitting doesn't necessarily bother me. Unlike with this wool tunic, where a lot of the long seams I could get away with using a running back stitch, all of the seams on these pieces are probably going to be under some form of stress, so I basically had to use backstitch for the entire project for the main seams. I then felled down all those seams as well to make sure the edges didn't fray and to make sure that the seams had extra strength. And here are the finished hose. So as you can see, they're not the most form-fitting, and as I said, that comes down to the fact I didn't cut the fabric on the bias. This is really not an issue for me. My feet are going to be in my shoes, my skirts are going to cover up my calves, no one's going to see this. If they do, they're going to get the barest flash of it, and because I chose a fabric that is the exact same as my tunic, hopefully people won't even give it a second look. And if you've been following along on my Instagram, you will know that I have made another pair of hose in this same pattern, although I did cut those ones on the bias. I made those ones in an orange that's very close to a madder dye I achieved not long ago. So that's it. I now have something to keep my feet nice and toasty warm during winter events, or indeed around the house during the colder months, so I'm pretty chuffed with this. Yes, they are not perfectly historically accurate. No, I don't have much evidence to support them, definitely not for a Hiberno Norse impression, but sometimes we have to look at this through the lens of practicality, and that dictates I need warmth. If I have any Irish viewers watching today, let me know in the comments how cold your winters get. I can't imagine the Irish Vikings would have survived well just with my surface level knowledge of your climate without socks. Likewise, if you think that I've missed a critical piece of evidence that tells us what sort of socks or hose the Irish Vikings would have worn, please leave that in the comments as well. I'd love to hear it. If you'd like to see more behind the scenes or in progress shots of the work that I do off YouTube, feel free to head over to Instagram. That's where I post most of that stuff, so you can keep abreast of things there. That's all I have for you today though. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.